There's a man in Ohio who just lost $43,000, and he didn't gamble it away. He didn't invest in crypto or some pyramid scheme. He just showed up to work every day for 11 years, did his job well, and trusted the system. His name is Michael, and what happened to him is happening to millions of people right now who think they're playing it safe. We've been told the same story our entire lives. Get a good education, find a stable job, work your way up, save for retirement. That's the path to financial security. That's how you win. Except somewhere between when your parents entered the workforce and now, the rules changed, the math changed, and almost nobody updated the script. Here's what's strange. In 2026, unemployment is relatively low. The stock market keeps hitting new highs. Company profits are strong. By most headlines, the economy looks fine. But if you talk to people who actually work for a living, there's this quiet anxiety that wasn't there before. It's not panic, it's not doom, it's something more unsettling. It's the slow realization that the old promises don't apply anymore. Let me show you what I mean. For decades, the deal was simple. You trade your time and skills to a company. In return, you get a salary, benefits, and something called job security. That last part was the key. Job security meant predictability. It meant you could plan your life, buy a house, start a family, retire with dignity. The job was the foundation. Everything else was built on. But here's what's actually happening now. The average worker in the United States will change jobs 12 times over their career. Not by choice, usually. Through layoffs, restructures, acquisitions, or just being quietly phased out. And each time that happens, you're not just losing a paycheck. You're losing equity that has invested. You're losing the company match on your retirement plan. You're resetting your vacation days. You're starting over on the healthcare waiting period. You're losing momentum. Michael from Ohio? He worked at a regional manufacturing firm. Good company, steady work. He'd been there since 2014. By 2025, he'd accumulated stock options worth about $43,000. But those options vested over 4 years, and the company had a policy. If you left or got laid off before the vesting date, you forfeited everything. In February of 2025, 3 months before his options vested, the company announced a restructuring. Michael's entire department was eliminated. He got 8 weeks of severance. The stock options evaporated. Now, you might say that's just bad luck. One company, one policy, but this isn't an edge case. This is the design. Vesting schedules, non-compete clauses, clawback provisions, deferred bonuses. These aren't perks, they're handcuffs. They're specifically built to extract maximum value from employees while minimizing the company's long-term obligation. And the longer you stay, the more you have to lose by leaving. Which means you're not secure, you're trapped. Here's the uncomfortable part. It's not just about stock options. Let's talk about what a stable job actually costs you an opportunity. Imagine 2 people, both 30 years old, both talented. Person A takes a stable corporate job at $75,000 a year. Solid benefits. Clear path to promotion. Person B becomes a consultant or freelancer in the same field, also making $75,000 in year 1. Person A feels like they made the safer choice. But let's fast forward. Person A gets a 3% raise every year. That's standard. Maybe a promotion every 4 or 5 years with a 10% bump. By age 40, they're making around $98,000. Not bad. Person B, meanwhile, changes clients every 2 years. Each time they switch, they renegotiate. They raise their rate by 15 to 20%. By age 40, they're making $140,000. Same industry, same work. Different structure, same work. But wait, it gets worse for Person A. Because that stable job comes with something called lifestyle inflation. When you have predictable income, you make predictable commitments. The mortgage, the car payment, the kids' school. You build a life that requires that paycheck. So even if you realize you're underpaid, even if you see better opportunities, you can't just leave. You're locked in by your own expenses. Person B never built that dependency. They stayed flexible. And flexibility, it turns out, is worth more than stability. Now let's talk about something nobody wants to think about. Pensions are basically gone. If you're under 50, you probably don't have one. What you have instead is a 401k. And the 401k was never meant to be your primary retirement plan. It was created in 1978 as a supplemental savings vehicle. But somewhere along the way, companies realized they could shift all the risk onto employees. Instead of guaranteeing you a pension, they just give you access to a tax-deferred account and maybe match a few % of your contributions. The rest is up to you. Here's the problem. The average 401k balance for someone in their 60s is about $112,000. That might sound like a lot. It's not. If you retire at 65 and live to 85, that's 20 years. 112,000 divided by 20 years is $5,600 a year. That's $466 a month. You can't live on that. Social Security might add another $1,800 a month if you're lucky. That's still only around $27,000 a year. The poverty line for a single adult is $15,000. You're barely above it. And this is for people who did everything right. They stayed at stable jobs. They contributed to their 401k. They didn't panic sell during market crashes, and they still ended up broke. But here's where it gets really dark. The system knows this. Companies know this. And they've built an entire apparatus to keep you from realizing it until it's too late. Let's talk about something called golden handcuffs. This is when a company gives you just enough deferred compensation that leaving feels impossible. Unvested stock, retention bonuses, pension cliffs? It's not about rewarding loyalty, it's about preventing mobility. And it works. People stay in jobs they hate, working for managers they don't respect, because walking away means losing money they've already earned but can't access yet. There's a guy on Reddit who posted about this last year. He worked at a tech company for 9 years. He was miserable, burned out, health declining. But he had stock options worth $200,000 vesting in 18 months, so he stayed. He white-knuckled it. Then, 16 months in, the company was acquired. The new parent company canceled all unvested options. He got nothing. 9 years, $200,000, gone. You want to know the worst part? He can't even sue. It was in the fine print. The options were contingent on remaining employed and on the company's discretion. He signed away his leverage the day he accepted the offer. Now zoom out. This isn't just happening in tech. It's happening in healthcare, finance, education, manufacturing. Every sector. The logic is the same. Make employees dependent. Extract value. Minimize guarantees. Repeat. And it's not illegal. It's just capitalism working exactly as designed. But let's say you're smart. Let's say you see all this coming and you decide to hedge. You start a side hustle. You build skills outside your main job. You diversify your income. Good plan. Except your employer probably has a clause in your contract that says anything you create, even on your own time, belongs to them. It's called an intellectual property assignment. Most people never read it, but it's there, and it's enforceable. There was a woman in California who built a software tool on weekends to help manage her own freelance work. It had nothing to do with her day job. She quit and tried to turn it into a business. Her former employer sued her, claiming they owned the code because she was employed by them when she wrote it. She lost. The tool was shut down. She owed legal fees. You're not allowed to build an escape route. Now let's talk about what happens during a recession. Because this is where the math gets truly brutal. When the economy contracts, companies lay people off. That's expected. But here's what's not obvious. The people who get laid off aren't always the lowest performers. They're the highest earners. Because payroll is the biggest line item on most balance sheets. And if you can cut one senior employee making $150,000 and replace them with 2 junior employees making $60,000 each, you just saved $30,000 and increased productivity. This happened in 2020. Millions of experienced workers were let go. Companies hired younger, cheaper replacements. Then, when those older workers tried to re-enter the market, they discovered something horrifying. Nobody wanted them. They were either overqualified or too expensive. Age discrimination is illegal, but it's almost impossible to prove. So they ended up taking jobs that paid 30 to 40% less than what they made before. Their lifestyle didn't adjust overnight, so they burned through savings, took on debt, sold assets, and by the time they stabilized, they'd lost years of financial progress. And here's the kicker. Their 401k took a hit too, because they withdrew money early to survive, which triggered penalties and taxes. The system punished them for getting laid off. Meanwhile, the executives who made the decision to lay them off got bonuses for cutting costs. Let me give you another angle. Healthcare. In most developed countries, healthcare is decoupled from employment. You lose your job, you still have coverage. In the United States, your health insurance is tied to your employer, which means if you get sick and can't work, you lose the very thing you need to get better. It's circular and insane. But it's also incredibly effective at keeping people compliant. You can't quit, you can't take risks, you can't even get mad, because your family's health depends on you staying in line. There are people working jobs they despise, for managers who belittle them, in companies that undervalue them, because their kid has diabetes or their spouse has cancer. They're hostages. And the company knows it. This is what stability actually means in 2026. It doesn't mean security, it means dependency. So why don't more people see this? Why isn't everyone talking about it? Because the narrative is incredibly powerful. We've been conditioned to believe that employment is the default path to prosperity. That's what school prepares you for. That's what society rewards. The entire infrastructure, tax codes, loan approvals, social status is built around the assumption that you have a job. Not that you create value, not that you own assets, that you work for someone else. And anyone who challenges that narrative gets labeled as risky or irresponsible. Oh, you want to freelance? That's not stable. You want to start a business? Most of those fail. You want to invest instead of work? That's for rich people. The system has an answer for every alternative. And the answer is always the same. Get a job. Stay at your job. Be grateful for your job. But the data doesn't support the narrative anymore. The stable job is no longer a wealth-building vehicle. It's a treadmill. You can run as fast as you want. You're not getting anywhere. And the people who do build wealth, they're not doing it through salary. They're doing it through equity, ownership, and leverage. Jeff Bezos didn't get rich from his salary at Amazon. Elon Musk didn't get rich from his salary at Tesla. They got rich because they owned pieces of the companies. Equity compounds. Salary doesn't. But here's the problem. Equity is reserved for founders, executives, and early-stage investors. The average employee gets just enough equity to keep them motivated, but not enough to change their life. It's a carrot on a stick, and the stick keeps moving. So what do? That's the question everyone's asking, and I don't have a perfect answer. But I can tell you what doesn't work: hoping your employer will take care of you, waiting for the system to fix itself, believing that hard work alone will be enough. Those strategies might have worked in 1975. They don't work now. What does work is treating your career like a portfolio. Multiple income streams, sellable skills, portable benefits, no single point of failure. That means side income, investments, network, reputation, things that belong to you, not your employer. It also means being willing to move. The data is very clear. People who change jobs every 2 to 3 years earn significantly more over their lifetime than people who stay at one company. Loyalty is not rewarded, movement is. And yeah, it's exhausting. It's not supposed to be this hard. You shouldn't have to optimize every aspect of your financial life just to avoid falling behind. But that's where we are. The old social contract is dead. And we're all just pretending it still exists because the alternative is too uncomfortable to admit. Michael from Ohio didn't do anything wrong. He worked hard, he believed in the system, and the system failed him. Not dramatically, not all at once, just quietly, predictably. The way it's designed to. The real risk isn't taking chances anymore. It's thinking you don't have to. So before you go, hit the like button if this changed how you think about job security. Subscribe because we're breaking down more systems that don't work the way you think they do. And share this with someone who still believes a stable job is the safest bet. Because the biggest financial risk in 2026 isn't what you do. It's what you assume.